Amaka, a radiant young girl, often found herself lost in daydreams. While others embraced the simplicity of their world, she longed for something greater: beauty, recognition, and a life of elegance. Her small mirror became her closest friend, reflecting not just her face, but her deepest insecurities. "If only I were like the women in the city," she whispered to herself, convinced that her natural beauty wasn't enough. Her parents, sensing her restlessness, often reminded her, "True beauty is from within," but their words felt distant compared to the glamorous images in her mind. Every evening, as the village gathered under the moonlight for tales and laughter, Amaka stayed behind, scrolling through her phone, mesmerized by the lavish lifestyles of influencers in Lagos. The perfect outfits, flawless makeup, and expensive outings convinced her that happiness lay beyond the dusty roads of her home. "One day, I'll leave this place," she vowed, ignoring the warmth and simplicity that surrounded her. Each passing day only intensified her longing, making the village feel smaller, duller. When she received admission to a prestigious university in Lagos, excitement filled her veins. This was her escape, her chance to transform into the woman she had always dreamed of becoming. Her parents, though proud, felt a deep worry they couldn't explain. "Remember where you come from," her mother told her, pressing her hands gently. "Don't let the city change you." Amaka smiled, but said nothing, her thoughts already lost in the dazzling city lights. The journey to Lagos felt like stepping into a different world. Towering buildings replaced trees, and honking cars drowned out the sounds of nature. Every face she saw radiated confidence, style, and an air of importance. She suddenly felt out of place, her simple village clothes making her shrink. But she had come prepared. She would adapt, blend in, and make herself unrecognizable from the girl she used to be. As she settled into her hostel, a group of stylish girls caught her eye. They walked with grace, their presence demanding attention. Amaka watched, fascinated, as they laughed, their designer bags swinging effortlessly. "That's who I want to be," she thought, determination setting in. She had finally arrived at the life she desired, but she was yet to understand its price. At first, Lagos felt like a dream come true. Amaka watched in awe as luxury cars sped past. Women with flawless skin strutted in high heels, and restaurants shimmered with elegance. But beneath the surface, she sensed an unspoken rule: only the beautiful and wealthy truly belonged. In her modest dresses and untouched face, she felt invisible. She soon met Kioma, a strikingly fashionable girl whose confidence was magnetic. "You're pretty, Amaka, but you need to upgrade," Kioma teased, twirling a sleek wig between her fingers. "Let me show you how to survive in this city." Chioma and her friends became Amaka's guides into a world she had only imagined. They introduced her to the best salons, makeup artists, and boutiques that promised instant transformation. At first, she hesitated. Her mother's words about inner beauty echoed faintly. But the first time she walked into a party with perfectly laid edges, long lashes, and a designer dress, heads turned, compliments rained on her like blessings, and the thrill of being noticed filled her chest. She had never felt more alive. Yet, admiration came with expectations. The girls never paid for their luxury, they were always taken care of. Amaka watched as wealthy men admired them, showering them with gifts in exchange for companionship. "It's nothing," Chioma reassured her. "You get what you want, they get what they want." The idea unsettled Amaka, but when she glanced at her reflection, her sleek new look, her expensive perfumes, wondered if this was the price of beauty. The more she changed, the further she drifted from her roots. Calls from home became shorter, her mother's voice now an interruption rather than a comfort. "Are you okay, my daughter?" her father asked one evening. "You don't sound like yourself." Amaka forced a laugh. "I'm fine, Papa. Lagos is just busy." But deep down, she knew the truth. She was no longer the simple village girl. She was becoming someone else, someone the city demanded her to be. One night, as she admired her reflection in the mirror, a thought crept into her mind. Maybe I'm still not enough. The girls talked about enhancements, perfect curves, flawless skin, sharper features. The idea of plastic surgery didn't seem extreme anymore. It felt like the next step. After all, wasn't beauty about perfection? As she lay in bed, the city lights flickering through her window, Amaka made a silent decision. She would do whatever it took to become the woman she had always dreamed of. The first time Amaka visited the clinic, she felt her heart race. The walls were pristine white, the scent of expensive perfumes lingering in the air. Chioma held her hand reassuringly. "Trust me, once you do it, you'll wonder why you waited so long," she whispered. The doctor smiled, his voice smooth and persuasive. "It's a simple procedure. You'll heal quickly, and the results will be stunning." Amaka hesitated, but the thought of being even more admired, of finally being the most beautiful in the room, overpowered her fears. She signed the papers. The pain after surgery was worse than she expected. Her body ached, her skin felt stretched too tight, and every movement was a reminder of what she had done. She avoided mirrors for days, afraid to see the changes. When she finally looked, she gasped. The swelling hid most of the results, but beneath it, she saw what she had paid for: the sharp curves, the flawless skin. A new Amaka stared back. "You look perfect," Chioma grinned. But why did she feel so empty? The admiration came instantly. Strangers stared in awe, men showered her with gifts, and even women who once ignored her now wanted to be her friend. But with the attention came new expectations. "You have to maintain it," Chioma warned. Lagos doesn't forgive flaws. Expensive skincare, monthly touch-ups, constant dieting. It was a never-ending race. The money she once saved for school fees now went into keeping up appearances. Skipping class became normal, missing assignments unavoidable. "You're losing yourself," her roommate muttered one night. But wasn't this what she wanted? The first sign of trouble came subtly: a small headache, then dizziness. "It's normal," the doctor assured her. "Your body is just adjusting." But the exhaustion deepened. She struggled to breathe some nights, her legs ached, and bruises took longer to fade. Panic swelled in her chest. She confided in Chioma, who waved it off. "Relax, babe. Just rest." But rest didn't help. Each morning she woke up weaker. Each step felt heavier. The dream she had chased so desperately was beginning to feel like a nightmare. One evening, as she lay in her lavish apartment, her phone rang. It was her mother. "My daughter, are you okay? I had a bad dream about you." Amaka's eyes filled with tears. For the first time in years, she wished she were home. But she couldn't go back, not like this. Not after everything. She had come to Lagos to become someone new, but now she was losing the very thing that made her who she was herself. Amaka's strength faded faster than she could hide. Once, she walked with confidence. Now, every step felt like dragging a weight she could no longer carry. The dizzy spells worsened, and the sharp pains in her chest became unbearable. Yet, she still forced a smile, still attended events, still posted perfect pictures online. "You're overthinking it," Chioma said when she voiced her fears. "Just take more vitamins, exercise a bit." But deep down, Amaka knew something was terribly wrong. One evening, during a high-profile dinner party, Amaka's vision blurred. The room spun as she reached for a glass of water, her hands trembling. Laughter and music filled the air, but everything sounded distant. Then, as if in slow motion, her body gave in. The glass slipped, shattering on the marble floor. A gasp echoed through the crowd as she collapsed, her world turning black. When she opened her eyes, she was in a hospital bed. Machines beeped softly around her. A doctor stood beside her, his face serious. "You need to rest, Amaka. Your body is shutting down." Chioma visited later, her face pale. "Amaka, what's happening to you?" she whispered. Amaka wanted to laugh. Chioma, the one who had encouraged her to change, now looked at her with fear, as if she were fragile. "You said I would love myself more," Amaka said bitterly. "Then why do I feel like I'm disappearing?" Her voice broke, and for the first time in a long time, Chioma had nothing to say. Amaka realized then that her glamorous life was nothing but a fragile illusion. The doctor's words haunted her. "Your body is rejecting the changes. If you don't take care of yourself, it will get worse." She had spent years reshaping herself to fit a perfect image, but now that image was costing her everything. She stared at her reflection in the hospital mirror. The once vibrant girl from the village was gone, replaced by someone unrecognizable. Her phone buzzed her mother. She ignored it, ashamed. How could she explain to her family that the daughter they had raised with love had turned herself into a stranger? Days passed, and Amaka's body grew weaker. The money she had once spent on luxury now drained into medical bills. The people she impressed slowly disappeared, their concern fading with distance.
Even Chioma, overwhelmed by guilt, visited less. Alone in her hospital room, Amaka finally allowed herself to cry, not just from pain, but from the realization that she had been chasing something that never truly belonged to her. Amaka's return home was nothing like she had imagined. She had once left the village with dreams of grandeur, convinced that the world beyond held the key to happiness. Now, she was back not as a triumphant success, but as a shadow of herself. The villagers whispered when they saw her frail frame and tired eyes. Her mother, who had once begged her to stay, said nothing. She only pulled Amaka into her arms, holding her as if she could shield her from the pain of her own choices. Lying on her childhood bed, Amaka stared at the ceiling, haunted by memories of the life she had chased. The designer clothes, the admiration, the lavish lifestyle, all of it felt like a cruel joke now. She thought of the countless times she had ignored her mother's calls, too ashamed to admit that the life she had glorified was slowly destroying her. Now, she longed to hear her mother's voice scolding her for staying out too late, for making reckless choices. But it was too late for scoldings. The damage was done. One evening, as the sun set over the quiet village, Amaka finally found the courage to speak. "Mama," she whispered, her voice weak. "I thought I was making my life better." Her mother, seated beside her, traced her fingers over Amaka's trembling hand. "You were always beautiful, my daughter. You didn't have to change to be loved." The words cut deeper than any pain she had felt before. She had spent years searching for validation in strangers' eyes, never realizing she already had unconditional love waiting for her at home. Days passed, and Amaka's condition worsened. The sickness that had started as a warning now consumed her completely. The girl who had once walked with her head held high in Lagos was now too weak to stand. One night, as the wind whispered through the trees, she closed her eyes, feeling the weight of regret settle deep in her chest. Her last thought before slipping away was not of luxury or admiration, but of the simple happiness she had once taken for granted. Life filled with love, family, and self-acceptance.
In the days that followed, the village mourned. But her story did not die with her. She became a cautionary tale, a whispered lesson passed from mother to daughter. The girls who once envied her beauty now saw the truth behind her choices. The friends who had encouraged her transformation were left with guilt, their admiration replaced with sorrow. And her mother, though broken-hearted, held her head high, reminding everyone that true beauty is never found in the eyes of the world. It is something nurtured from within.